I thought my husband was taking our daughter to a sleepover. It was a normal Friday evening. She had her backpack on, her favorite unicorn slippers, and her little stuffed elephant named Nibsy tucked under her arm. I kissed her forehead on the porch and waved goodbye as Dane buckled her into the car. He smiled like nothing was wrong, like everything was just fine. That was the last moment that felt normal. 3 hours later, I was curled up on the couch in pajamas, half asleep with the TV humming in the background. My phone buzzed beside me. I remember glancing at the screen expecting a text or maybe a late shift alert from the hospital. Instead, it was a video message from Mira. My heart jumped a little, but I smiled. Maybe she was just sending a silly video from the sleepover. Maybe she wanted to say goodnight. I tapped play. What I saw turned my blood cold. Mira's face filled the screen. She was crying. Not whining, not fussing. Crying. Real tears streaking down her cheeks. Her voice was shaky, almost a whisper, like she was afraid someone might hear her. "Mom, where's Dad? Why am I here?" The room behind her was pitch black. I couldn't see anything except the faint outline of what looked like wood. Bare walls, no furniture, no lights, no other voices. I sat up straight, replayed the video, paused, listened again. "Mira?" I said out loud as if she could hear me. "Where are you, baby?" I called Dane immediately. Straight to voicemail. Tried again, still nothing. My chest tightened. I opened our text thread. Just one message from earlier that day. Taking her to Zoe's. Should be back by noon tomorrow. I stared at it. Zoe's. That was supposed to be her classmate. I had never met the parents, but Dane said he had. I never thought to double check. I texted, "Where is Mira? Call me now." Nothing. Something was wrong. I knew it in my bones. I called again, still no answer. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and went to the garage. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped them twice. I didn't know where I was going exactly, but I remembered Dane had sent the address earlier that week when we talked about the sleepover. I opened the map app on my phone and searched the thread. There it was, an address about 30 minutes outside of town. I backed out of the driveway and sped into the night. I don't even remember the turns I took or what the road looked like. Just trees, fences, shadows, and the pounding of my heart in my ears. As I drove, the video replayed in my mind over and over. Mira's eyes, wide, scared, searching for someone to trust. Her voice, barely holding itself together. I kept whispering, "Hold on, baby, Mommy's coming." The street Dane listed wasn't in a neighborhood. It was rural, isolated. I passed the last streetlight about a mile back. The road turned to gravel. I could barely see the house until I was right in front of it. It wasn't a house. It was a skeleton. An old, weather-worn 2-story place that looked like no one had lived there in decades. The windows were either broken or boarded up. The mailbox leaned sideways, rusted and open. The grass was knee-high. There were no other cars, no porch lights, no welcome mat. It was empty. My stomach dropped. I parked across the street and stared. This couldn't be right. Dane wouldn't leave her here. This had to be a mistake. I stepped out of the car. The air was thick and still. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I heard the crunch of leaves behind me. I turned fast. At first, I didn't see her. But then, between 2 trees across the yard, I saw someone standing there. A woman. She wasn't moving, just watching me. Her hair was long and dark, damp from the night air, and her arms were crossed tight across her chest. She looked like she'd been standing there a while. I called out, "Hello? Do you live here?" She didn't answer. I took a cautious step forward. "I'm looking for my daughter. She was supposed to be here with her dad. Have you seen a little girl? 7 years old, dark curly hair, purple jacket?" The woman took one step closer. Then she said, in the calmest voice I'd ever heard, "You need to leave. Right now. This place. This isn't where you think it is." My throat went dry. "What are you talking about? My daughter is in that house." The woman didn't blink. "No, she's not," she said. "And if you want to see her again, you'll listen to me." And just like that, every piece of me that was trying to stay calm fell apart. Something was deeply, terribly wrong. And I had no idea who this woman was. But the look in her eyes told me she wasn't lying. Not even a little. It had been a long week. Back-to-back night shifts in the ER. double coverage because of a staffing shortage, and barely 5 hours of sleep between shifts. All I wanted for the weekend was rest, a little quiet, and maybe just one night of not being needed by anyone. When Dane suggested taking Mira to a sleepover, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask questions. I smiled, kissed him on the cheek, and thanked him. "That would be amazing," I said. "I just need one good night." He grinned and said, "You've earned it." He always knew exactly what to say. Mira was thrilled. She'd never been to a sleepover before, but she'd been begging for one. Apparently, her classmate Zoe had invited a few girls, and Dane said he'd talked to Zoe's dad when he dropped Mira off at school last week. I never met them, but I trusted Dane. He was the more social one, better at meeting new people. I was the worrier, the planner, the text me when you get there kind of mom. That afternoon, Mira packed her things all by herself. Her pajamas with the little shooting stars, her toothbrush, a small pink blanket, and Nibsy, the stuffed elephant she refused to sleep without. "Mama, do you think they'll have pancakes in the morning?" she asked while zipping up her backpack. "Probably, and if not, Daddy will stop and get you some on the way home." She smiled, her front tooth missing, a gap where baby teeth had started to fall out. "You'll miss me, won't you?" Terribly. I helped her tie her shoes while she chatted nonstop about what movies they might watch and whether Zoe had pets. She was buzzing with excitement, and it made me feel lighter, too. I wasn't used to being away from her. Even when I worked nights, I'd come home early enough to wake her up for school, make her breakfast, and hear about her dreams. She was my shadow, my girl. The one thing in this world that kept me tethered when everything else felt like it was spinning. Dane walked in with his keys in hand and clapped. "Let's go, superstar. You don't want to be late to your first real sleepover." Mira ran to him and hugged his waist. He picked her up like she was still a toddler, kissed her cheek, and told her she was the bravest 7-year-old in the world. She giggled the whole way to the door. I followed them outside, watching them load up. Dane's SUV was already packed with snacks and a sleeping bag. He'd even written a little note for Mira to give to the parents, emergency contacts and allergies. Everything looked so well prepared. I leaned down and kissed Mira through the open car window. "Call me if you need anything, okay? I'll keep my phone right next to me." She nodded. "Bye, Mama. I love you." "I love you too." Dane walked around the front of the car and kissed me softly on the lips. "I'll text you when we get there." "Thank you," I said, my voice quiet. "For doing this." He smiled and touched my cheek. "You need rest. We've got this." Then they were gone. I stood on the porch for a few seconds longer than I meant to, staring at the spot where the SUV disappeared down the road. The sun was dipping behind the trees. The neighborhood was quiet. I went inside, closed the door, and for the first time in what felt like months, the house was still. I made tea. I turned on a show I'd been meaning to watch. I lit a candle. I even danced a little in the kitchen while the kettle boiled, humming to music that Mira always called mom songs. For a few precious hours, it felt good. It felt safe. It felt earned. Around 9:30, I checked my phone. No texts, no photos. I figured they'd gotten caught up in the fun. I resisted the urge to text, not wanting to seem overbearing. At 10:30, I brushed my teeth, climbed into bed, and picked up a book I hadn't touched in weeks. I read the same page 5 times, distracted, not really understanding why. Something was gnawing at me, low and subtle, but easy to ignore if I tried hard enough. I told myself I was just tired, that Dane was probably chatting with the other parents, that Mira had fallen asleep watching a movie. I told myself a lot of things, but something inside me, something deep and maternal and unexplainable, kept whispering that I should have asked more questions, that I should have double-checked the address, that I should have met Zoe's parents myself. I pushed those thoughts away, closed the book, turned off the light. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen expecting a goodnight message, maybe a blurry picture of Mira with messy hair and a bowl of popcorn. Instead, it was a video from Mira, and the night changed forever. I watched the video again, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Mira was somewhere unfamiliar. The room behind her was too dark to see clearly, but I could make out parts of a wooden wall and what looked like a cement floor. She had her stuffed elephant clutched against her chest. Her face was streaked with tears. Her lips quivered as she whispered my name. "Mom, where's Dad? Why am I here? It's cold." I paused the video and stared at her frozen image. She was terrified. My little girl, who couldn't even sleep with the closet door cracked open, was sitting alone in a place that looked like a storage unit or an unfinished basement. Every part of my body screamed to run, to move, to get to her as fast as I could. I called Dane. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. I texted him. "I just got a video from Mira. Where is she? Answer me now." I watched the screen for the typing dots to appear. Nothing. I tried to stay calm. I told myself there was probably some explanation. Maybe he was helping Zoe's parents with something and his phone had died. Maybe they were at a cabin and Mira got confused or scared. But those excuses felt thinner by the second. I needed answers. I scrolled up in our text thread, searching for the address he had sent earlier that week. Found it. I copied it into my GPS, grabbed my coat, and was out the door in less than 2 minutes. The roads were almost empty. It was late and the sky was dark and thick with clouds. As I drove, I kept replaying the video. Every time I watched it, I noticed something else. A shiver in her voice. A shadow moving faintly in the corner. The silence that felt far too heavy. There were no other children, no signs of people talking or playing in the background. Just Mira, alone, crying. The GPS led me away from town, past neighborhoods, down a 2-lane road that became narrower with each turn. Trees crowded the shoulders. No lights, no signs of life. My heart thudded louder with every passing mile. I clutched the wheel tighter and leaned forward, trying to see farther through the windshield. When the navigation finally said I had arrived, I slowed down and stared at the property in front of me. It wasn't a house. It was a hollow shell. 2 stories, but barely standing. The siding was rotting. Windows were broken or boarded up. The front steps were cracked and uneven, and the yard looked like it hadn't been mowed in a decade. I checked the number on the mailbox. It matched the address Dane had given me. This couldn't be right. I parked across the street and got out of the car, holding my phone in one hand and my flashlight in the other. My breath clouded in the cold night air. The only sound was the wind moving through the trees. I stepped cautiously toward the front of the house. My boots crunched on gravel. I called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded too loud in the silence. Nothing. I walked around the porch, peering through gaps in the boards. Inside, it was empty. No furniture, no toys, no signs of anyone living there. I backed away. That's when I noticed something across the road. Movement, stillness. Something watching me. A woman. She stood just beyond the edge of the trees, half in shadow, half in the faint moonlight. Her posture was rigid. Her arms were crossed. She didn't look startled or nervous. She looked like she'd been waiting. I stepped back toward my car, then stopped and turned to face her. "Excuse me," I called out. "Do you live nearby?" She didn't answer. "I'm looking for my daughter. She was supposed to be here. Her name is Mira. She's 7. The woman stepped forward, just enough for me to see her face clearly. She looked tired. Her eyes were hollow and her hair hung loose around her shoulders. She had the look of someone who had seen too much and carried it alone for too long. "You need to leave," she said, her voice low but steady. "Right now." My stomach tightened. "Why? What is this place? Where's my husband? Where's my daughter?" She shook her head slowly. "He lied to you. This isn't a sleepover house. He's done this before." I froze. "What do you mean?" She stepped even closer, her voice quieter now. "He brought my daughter here years ago. Told me she was going to a birthday party. I never saw her again. I found this place weeks too late." I stared at her, not understanding. "He uses places like this," she continued. "Abandoned homes, off-grid, tells the mom something believable. He disappears with the kids, then he starts over." I felt the ground tilt. My ears were ringing. "You're lying," I said, but I didn't believe it myself. She didn't blink. "I wish I were." I backed away from her and dialed 911 with trembling hands. I gave them the address and told them my daughter might be in danger. They said officers were en route. I hung up and turned back to the woman. "How do you know all of this?" She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Because I lived it, And I promised myself if I ever saw him again, I'd stop him. I saw his SUV pull in earlier. You have to believe me. Your daughter isn't in that house anymore. You have to look farther. I stared back at the dark house, the shattered windows, the silence, the growing certainty that I had been betrayed in a way I couldn't even begin to understand. And my daughter was out there, waiting for me to find her. I stood in the middle of the road, the weight of everything the woman had said pressing against my chest. My brain fought to make sense of it, to categorize her as unhinged or confused, but the fear in her eyes wasn't rehearsed. It was real, carved deep, the kind of fear that doesn't go away with time. I recognized it because it mirrored my own. She stepped closer and said, "They won't find her in that house. You're wasting time if you stay here." I gripped my phone tighter. How do you know he took her somewhere else? What if she's still in there hiding? She shook her head. I've watched him do this. He creates the illusion of safety. Then he vanishes. He uses locations like this to confuse people. By the time the truth catches up, he's already moved on. The crunch of tires on gravel snapped my attention toward the road. 2 sheriff cruisers pulled up, lights flashing in the darkness. I waved them down, running toward the first one as the deputy stepped out. "My daughter is missing," I said, breathless. "She was supposed to be at a sleepover, but I got a video of her crying alone. My husband brought her here, and now he's gone." The woman approached slowly. "I need to talk to someone too. This man, Dane Hemley, he's done this before. Years ago, he took my daughter." The deputy looked between the two of us, skeptical but alert. One at a time. "Ma'am, you said you have a video?" I opened my phone and pulled up the message. He took it, turned the sound up, and watched. His face changed by the second. Calm to focused to disturbed. He handed the phone to his partner. "We need to search the house, now." They moved quickly, flashlights out, weapons drawn. I stood near the fence, clutching my coat around me. The woman stayed beside me. "What's your name?" I asked. "Jana." "How long ago did it happen? With your daughter?" 4 years. Her name was Lila. He told me he was taking her to meet friends. He never came back. The screen door creaked open. One of the deputies yelled out, "Clear upstairs!" Then another shout from the back, "No sign of anyone!" I stepped forward. "Is she in there?" The deputy came down the porch and met me by the fence. "There's no one inside, but we found something you should see." I followed him to the front room. The place smelled like mildew and decay. Floorboards groaned under our feet. He led me to a corner of the room where an old duffel bag lay open. Inside was Mira's pink backpack. I dropped to my knees and pulled it out. It was hers. The rainbow zipper pull she made in art class was still hanging off the side. Inside were her pajamas, her toothbrush, and Nibsy. She wouldn't have left him behind on her own. Underneath the stuffed elephant was a folded drawing. I opened it slowly. Crayon lines covered the page, stick figures of me, Mira, and our dog, Max, in the front yard. A small heart floated above us. On the back, in her handwriting, were 5 words. "Mommy, I miss you already." I pressed the paper to my chest and closed my eyes. Every fear I had been holding at bay broke loose. He had been planning this. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. I walked outside where Jana waited, her arms wrapped tightly around her middle. "They found her backpack," I said, "but she's not there." Jana nodded. "That's how it starts." I turned to the deputy. "You have to track his car. He drives a black 2018 Chevy Tahoe. Plates are registered under Hemley Real Estate." He walked back to his vehicle and started radioing for surveillance access. Another officer began setting up a search perimeter. The air felt sharper now, urgent. The illusion of safety had been stripped away, and what remained was the terrifying reality of what Dane was capable of. I paced back and forth, checking my phone over and over. Still nothing from him. His social media accounts were quiet. No location pings, no signs of a recent post. I called his sister. No answer. I called his work, voicemail. Then I remembered something. 2 weeks ago, Dane mentioned, showing a series of cabins on the edge of town. He said they were foreclosure properties. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. I just remembered him saying, "No one's lived out there in years. It's like walking into a ghost story." I ran over to the deputy again. Check abandoned properties west of County Road 8, cabins. He's been out there recently. He wrote it down and relayed the update to dispatch. Jana stepped closer. That's where he took Lila, a cabin near the river. You might be right. Everything inside me surged forward. I couldn't wait anymore. I needed to find her. I wasn't going to sit still while others searched. I'm going, I told the deputy. I'm not waiting. If he's heading for those cabins, then I need to be there when you get there. He didn't argue. We'll follow, just don't go inside alone. I got in my car. Jana climbed into the passenger seat without asking. If he's there, she said, you'll need someone who knows what you're walking into. I didn't respond. I started the engine and tore down the gravel road with my hands clenched on the wheel, my heart racing toward the only thing that mattered, Mira. I drove like my life depended on it because it did. Every second Mira was out there, I imagined her scared and alone. The winding back roads blurred past us as my headlights cut through the dark. Jana sat silently beside me, gripping the seat with both hands. She didn't give directions, but she didn't need to. We both knew where we were going. 15 minutes later, we reached the edge of a forgotten gravel trail. The trees pressed in tightly, tall and still. A rusted gate leaned open at the entrance. I turned in. The path was narrow, barely wide enough for the car, overgrown with weeds and branches that scratched the sides as we passed. Then I saw it. A row of old, sagging cabins lined the clearing. 6 in total, arranged like pieces on a broken game board. The fourth one down had a light on inside. Jana pointed. That one. I stopped the car and jumped out. The cold hit me instantly, but I barely felt it. My legs moved on instinct. I didn't wait for backup. I didn't wait for anything. I ran straight to the front door and pounded with both fists. Mira! It's Mommy! Mira, can you hear me? No answer. I tried the handle. Locked. I moved around the side to a narrow window and pressed my face against the glass. Inside, I saw her. She was curled up on a thin mattress on the floor, hugging Nibsy to her chest. Her jacket was still on. Her shoes, too. Her eyes were open, staring at the door, dazed and silent. I banged on the glass. Mira, baby, look at me. Mommy's here. She didn't move at first. Then slowly her head turned. Her eyes found mine. Her mouth opened and she said one word. Mommy. I backed up and kicked at the door with everything I had. Once, twice. The third time, it cracked. The fourth time, it burst open. I rushed inside and dropped to my knees beside her. I'm here. You're okay. I've got you. I've got you. She clung to me, sobbing into my shoulder, her small body trembling. He said it was a game, she cried. He said we were hiding and not to make noise. I held her tighter, my hand cradling the back of her head. You're safe now, I promise. No more games. Behind me, footsteps pounded up the porch. I turned, ready to fight if I had to, but it was the deputies. They swept inside, cleared the space, and one of them radioed in. We've got the girl, cabin 4, requesting medical and child support units now. Jana stepped through the door, her hands shaking. She saw Mira and stopped in her tracks. She's alive, she whispered. You found her. I nodded but didn't speak. My throat was too tight. One of the deputies walked over. We didn't find anyone else. No sign of the father. No vehicle either. Looks like he left her here and vanished. I stood, still holding Mira against my chest. He just left her? He nodded. Seems that way. Maybe he knew we were getting close. An ambulance arrived minutes later. They wrapped Mira in a thermal blanket and checked her vitals. She had no visible injuries, but they took her in for observation. I rode with her, never letting go of her hand. At the hospital, they asked her questions gently. She told them Dane brought her to the cabin and said it was part of the sleepover, that they were going to play hide and seek, but she had to stay quiet or the game would be ruined. He gave her snacks, a flashlight, and said he'd be right back. Then he never came back. The moment Mira was cleared medically, she fell asleep curled beside me in the hospital bed. I sat beside her, wide awake, watching her breathe. The fear hadn't left me yet. My body was still bracing for something worse, something final. But the worst had already happened, and somehow we had survived it. Just before sunrise, a deputy returned with an update. We traced a burner phone to Dane. We think he left the area through a service road out by the river. We've issued a statewide alert. He's officially a fugitive. I nodded, not surprised. What about Jana? I asked. She helped us find this place. She's being interviewed now. She's cooperating fully. Her story matches yours in too many places to ignore. We believe she's telling the truth. Mira stirred in her sleep and reached for my hand. I squeezed hers gently. Do you think he'll come back? I asked, my voice barely audible. The deputy didn't answer right away, then he said, We don't think so, but we're not taking any chances. You'll have full protection until he's caught. I looked at my daughter's sleeping face, pale and peaceful now under the hospital's soft light. Dane had planned this for weeks, maybe longer. He chose a place no one would think to check, counted on my exhaustion, my trust, and my love for him to blind me. He didn't expect me to follow the trail. He didn't expect a woman from his past to still be watching. But he was wrong. I found her, and I wasn't done fighting. I didn't sleep for days. Even after Mira came home, even after the police assured me we were safe, I couldn't close my eyes without hearing her voice from that video or seeing that dark, empty cabin where she'd been left. She slept in my bed every night, curled beside me with her stuffed elephant tucked between us. I didn't mind. I needed her close too. For the first time in my life, I didn't care if I was too protective or too soft or too attached. She was mine. She'd always been mine, and I almost lost her. We had support. A trauma counselor visited the house. Child services came and confirmed Mira was in a stable environment. Friends brought food and offered help, but I struggled to speak to anyone. The words sat in my throat like stones. I had been married to Dane for 8 years. I loved him. I built a life with him. I trusted him to protect our child. And behind all of that, there was another version of him I never saw coming. I thought about Jana often. The night after everything happened, she stayed at the hospital until morning. Before she left, she came into Mira's room and stood by the bed, silent for a long time. Then she looked at me and said, You broke the cycle. I couldn't, but you did. I tried to thank her, but she shook her head. I waited too long, she said. I thought no one would believe me. I didn't have anyone. He was good at making me feel like I was the crazy one. I watched her walk away, wondering how many other women had been tricked, manipulated, erased. How many were still trying to speak, only to be silenced by charm and lies. The police released a statement about Dane. They asked the public for help in locating him and urged anyone with information to come forward. They called him armed and dangerous and a high-risk abductor. His photo was on the news for 3 nights. Then it stopped, but I never stopped looking. Every day I checked news sites, social media, anything that might lead to a tip. I handed over everything I could think of, phone records, emails, his client list from work. But Dane had vanished. No bank activity, no digital trace, nothing. Some days I wanted closure more than I wanted justice. I wanted to know why. Why our daughter? Why now? Why me? But answers wouldn't fix what he broke. I had to make peace with the truth I did have. Mira asked about him once, 3 weeks after she came home. We were eating breakfast when she said, Is Daddy still playing hide and seek? I looked into her eyes, searching for anger, fear, confusion. But there was only the fragile curiosity of a child trying to understand something too big for her age. No, baby, I said. Daddy's not playing anymore. And you don't have to play either, not ever again. She nodded and went back to her cereal. She hasn't mentioned him since. I learned a lot in the aftermath. I learned how grief and rage can exist in the same breath. I learned that intuition isn't just a feeling, it's a warning, a signal that should never be ignored. I learned that love doesn't always protect us. Sometimes it blinds us. Sometimes it's used against us. But I also learned what strength looks like. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind in movies where people fight villains with fists or weapons. I learned about the quiet kind, the kind that drives a mother to storm into the woods in the middle of the night, the kind that pushes a woman like Jana to relive her own trauma just to help someone else escape it, the kind that keeps you upright when your whole world collapses. We're healing, slowly, carefully. Mira laughs again. She draws pictures of us holding hands in front of our house, with big yellow suns and smiling stick figures. She's in therapy. So am I. Some nights are harder than others. When it rains, she clings to me a little tighter, but she's learning that she's safe now, and so am I. I changed the locks. I sold the car Dane used. I took down the wedding photos and packed away the memories that hurt too much to see every day. I left one frame on the shelf, a picture of me and Mira at the beach last summer, covered in sand and sticky from ice cream, her arms around my neck, both of us laughing. That's who we are, not what he tried to turn us into. To anyone listening, any woman, any parent, anyone who has that feeling in their chest that something isn't right, listen to it. Don't second guess it. Don't wait for proof that might come too late. You don't need permission to protect the people you love. I almost lost my daughter, but I didn't. I trusted the wrong person, but I saved her anyway. That is what I will carry forward. Not fear, not shame, but fire and love, and a promise that no one will ever hurt her again. If you're still here, thank you. Thank you for listening to my story. Sharing this wasn't easy, but I hope it helps someone else trust that voice inside them, the one that says, something isn't right, the one we're often told to quiet down, don't ignore it, ever. If this story moved you, please like the video so others can find it. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. If you've experienced something similar or just want to share your thoughts, leave a comment below. I read everyone. And if you want more true stories that dig deep into what we survive, what we learn, and how we come back stronger, subscribe to the channel. There's more to tell. You're not alone. Thank you for watching.